So, for some bizarre reason that has nothing to do with any discourse that's been occurring on the internet lately, none at all, I decided to rewatch the original Little Mermaid. This is one of the 4 films from the Disney Renaissance that are considered to be classics, but it's also noticeably more divisive than the others. I'll fully admit that I was definitely on the more negative side of things when it came to this film, but on my most recent rewatch, I see this movie less as overrated and more so as missed potential in comparison to some of the other movies that had come out around the same time. I think everyone pretty much universally agrees where this movie transcends: the animation, side characters, soundtrack, etc. So today, I wanted to draw specific attention to the areas that I personally take issue with, as well as give my thoughts on how I would personally fix them. So, the most common complaint levied towards this movie is with the main character, and I can sort of understand that sentiment. Ariel's main desire throughout the first half of the movie is exploring the different attributes of the human world. That desire isn't entirely repressed when she meets Eric, but he quickly becomes a catalyst for it. It greatly strengthens Ariel's longing to explore a hidden world that she's forbidden to go to due to her father's overprotective boundaries.
You went up to the surface again, didn't you? Didn't you?
We'll come back to King Triton later, but I think Ariel's main motivation for becoming human has now shifted to Eric. Not her only motivation, but her main one. That itself, however, is not a bad thing. It's their blossoming romance that ultimately convinces her to stay by the end of the movie. Eric is merely an outlet for her to achieve her pre-established goals, and her infectious energy is still ever present once she does reach the surface. So she is consistent in her writing. What I personally take issue with, however, is how the movie frames her. We understand why she decides to take such drastic measures to live amongst humans, with King Triton destroying the only connection she had to them via her collection, but her actions have significant consequences for the people around her, and she never has a moment where she gets called out or actually loses anything as a result of acting out of desperation. It's in line with her character, but she's established to be fully realized despite her naivete being shown to us multiple times. And because of this, it sort of makes the romance between her and Eric a little harder for me to root for. It doesn't feel earned. See, I feel like Disney was trying to emulate similar narrative structures of their earliest Disney princess films, but those films had way more simplistic stories and characters in comparison to this one. The dreams come true message feels incredibly tacked on and distracts from what starts out as a far more layered and three-dimensional story. However, what I consider to be this movie's greatest flaw in execution isn't Ariel, nor her relationship with Eric. It's King Triton. Before we really dive into him, we need to first examine his relationship with Ariel. In the very first scene with the two of them, we see that he's particular in addition to being overprotective. After all, the ceremony that she ended up missing was in his honor. But what's really noteworthy about this scene is why he doesn't want Ariel going on the surface.
You could have been seen by one of those barbarians, by one of those humans.
We can see that he has a lot of internalized prejudice towards the human world, for reasons that aren't entirely expanded on. It's why Ariel rescuing one and professing her love for him is what pushes him over the edge. Ariel spends most of the remainder of the movie separated from him, as the other characters can't tell Triton about the deal that she made with Ursula, even though Sebastian thinks that he can break the spell. It's not revealed until after the 3 days to kiss Eric are up that Ursula says that Triton's powers can't break their contract. But eventually they end up defeating Ursula, and Triton decides that he wants to let Ariel live on the surface.
Then I guess there's just one problem left.
And what's that, Your Majesty?
How much I'm going to miss her.
This, to me, feels like an incredibly disingenuous way of ending things. I understand that King Triton is now realizing how much this experience has meant to Ariel, but we never have a moment in the film where they get a chance to actually put aside their conflicting worldviews on humanity. King Triton is initially fixated on the idea that humans can't be trusted and should be avoided at all costs. And Ariel, despite having very little knowledge on the actual people, tries to convince him that this mindset is wrong. It's what makes their dynamic at the beginning of the film works so well, and there's potential for a lot of tangible growth. But because the movie shifts focus to Ariel and Eric, means that there's very little time that we have to actually see a change of heart in King Triton. One scene between the two of them could have very easily fixed this. Maybe give King Triton a moment where he apologizes to Ariel for overreacting, and acknowledging that he only did what he did to protect her. You know that one scene towards the end of Encanto where Alma reveals why she had such raised expectations for the family members, and how it unintentionally hurt Mirabel in the process? Something like that would have worked really well for this film. For the record, I'm not trying to directly compare these two, I'm just using Encanto as a frame of reference to emphasize what I personally would have liked to have seen from this movie.
Mirabel, I know you want to help, but tonight must go perfectly. I don't know why you weren't given a gift, but it is not an excuse for you to hurt this family. We are broken. Because of me.
Additionally, I think Triton's biases towards humankind were a really missed opportunity for the movie as a whole. Ariel essentially functions as a bridge between two polar worlds, and while the ending of the film allows for Triton's relationship with her to be repaired, it pushes aside his own internalized biases towards humans.
You could have been seen by one of those barbarians, by one of those humans.
One less human to worry about. He's a human. You're a mermaid.
They are dangerous.
Know him? I don't have to know him. They're all the same.
Do you think I want to see my youngest daughter snared by some fish-eater's hook?
Because of how much the movie emphasizes this, it doesn't make much logical sense for him to let Ariel stay on land solely because she fell in love. This is what I was referring to when I said the romance shifts focus from a more compelling story. There's room for a lot of potential themes regarding internalized prejudice and how not everybody in a certain group fits a society's perception on them. None of the humans in the movie fit Triton's idea of humankind, so the authenticity of the ending could be strengthened if we saw Triton interacting with humans, or at the very least, the one that Ariel falls in love with, and see how they're not as bad as he made them out to be. But this movie prioritizes the two leads coming together without taking into consideration the characterization of the person that has the most need for growth. I can't blame Disney too much for choosing the route that they did, as it was the boost that they needed to get back on track financially and regain the trust of their audience members. Even though the movie that came out before was infinitely better. But the choice to return to their roots makes the film not feel like it quite reached its fullest potential. With a few tweaks to the writing, I could definitely hold this in equally high standing with some of the other Renaissance films. It's got many of the excellent highs of most Disney films, but it could have been a bit more tighter with its screenplay. And wait a minute. This is the only Disney film in the entire Renaissance that has a shark in it.
What? Sharks?
10 out of 10. Good job, Disney.